All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've got quite a fascinating stack of material today, articles, notes, data, all pointing us towards one particular spot in South
It's
Africa.
a really rich collection,
Yeah,
yeah. Gives us a great chance to see how a place gets shaped, by history, the land itself, and, well, human choices.
exactly. So our mission today, let's quickly make sense of it all, pull out the really important bits, find those surprising details, and figure out what makes this place tick. And the place is Kloof.
Oh, Kloof.
Just the name sounds, I don't know, interesting, distinctive.
It certainly is. And as we'll see, that name is directly tied to the landscape. It
Yeah.
really weaves together the whole story from a wild gorge to the community it is now.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Basics first.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who isn't familiar, where exactly is Kloof? And, what's the story behind the name?
Right, fundamentals. So Kloof is located about 26 kilometers northwest of Durban. That's in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa.
Okay.
And Kloof itself is an Afrikaans word, means gorge. Yeah, the area is named after this deep ravine that was carved out by the Mulwini stream.
Hmm.
And Mulwini, interestingly, means stream of high cliffs.
So it all links back to that ravine.
Exactly. And that gorge, it's pretty significant. It forms the core of the Kloof Nature Reserve, which is, let's see, about 4.47 square kilometers.
So the name is literally describing the main feature. Makes sense. I also gathered from the sources it's known for being mainly English speaking. And it has this reputation, a sort of an escape from Durban's city life.
That reputation definitely comes through, yeah.
Yeah.
It's described as being in a mist belt area. You picture these winding roads, big properties, lots of trees,
Leafy.
very leafy, yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit elevated, separate. The sources mention upmarket shopping centers, the Kloof Country Club that was founded way back in 1927.
Wow.
And while it used to be its own town, its own municipality,
It's not anymore.
no, now it's officially part of the bigger eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality,
Yeah.
basically Greater Durban.
Okay, so leafy, elevated, good for escaping the heat, named after a gorge. But places always have a deeper history, right? The notes mention a source. Row 2003. Sounds like it goes back quite a ways. How did this area actually, get started?
Yeah, this is where it gets really fascinating. It shows how these modern suburbs often spring from, well, much older land divisions. What became Kloof was originally just a part of this huge farm.
Huge how?
Surveyed back in 1845, a 6,000-acre property called Richmond.
6,000 acres.
Massive, named by the first Lieutenant Governor, Sir Martin West, after the Duke of Richmond.
Okay, so was there a specific bit of that huge farm that became Kloof?
Yes, exactly. The real core area was Richmond Farm number 9999. This specific plot's still huge, mind you, about 2,836 hectares. That's over 7,000 acres.
Still enormous.
Right. It was bought in 1845 by a man named William Swanfield. He was the first collector of customs for the natal colony, also one of Durban's first magistrate.
Okay, William Swanfield. And for 7,000 acres in 1845, what did that cost?
Get ready for this. 245.
245 pounds for 7,000 acres. That figure alone tells a story, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Just how different the world was, the value of that land. Must have seemed like the middle of nowhere.
Oh, completely. And interestingly, William Swanfield, he didn't actually settle there himself.
No.
No, his brother did. John Cootfield and his family. They came up from the Cape Colony in 1845. The farm was eventually transferred to this brother, John Cootfield I, in 1867. And the price then, 4,401 pounds, 10 shillings.
Okay, so a jump in value already over those 20-odd years hints at something changing.
Definitely suggests some development, or at least a perception of increased value.
So the Field family, they were really the first ones there. What about their home, the homestead?
Yeah, there was a main house, Richmond House. J.C. Field I built the original one in 1854, replaced a more basic wattle and daub hut they started with. Later on, that Richmond section of the farm went to his son, John Cootfield II, around 1880 when he got married. And he actually knocked part of the old house down and rebuilt nearby.
Okay, so the family's established. How does this one massive farm start turning into, well, a village or a community?
The big shift happened after J.C. Field I died in 1896, and then especially after his widow passed away in 1901.
Ah, inheritance.
Exactly. The farm was divided up among the kids. Each son got a pretty hefty chunk, 560 acres. Each daughter got 395 acres. And the youngest son, Benjamin Cromwell Colenso Field, He inherited the actual homestead plus another 500 acres.
That sounds like the moment things started to change, splitting up that single
It
property.
was absolutely the catalyst. These subdivisions and then the selling off of pieces of Richmond Farm after 1901, that's really the birth of Kloof as, a place for people to live.
And who was buying these plots? Still farmers?
Mostly not, actually. It was mainly wealthy Durban residents, businessmen. They weren't really looking for working farms. They wanted country houses, retreats.
And this goes back to the climate again, right? That escape from Durban's heat and humidity you mentioned.
Precisely. Kloof's higher up, about 550 meters above sea level. That made a real difference, offered a genuine escape, especially in summer.
I can imagine.
These country places became really popular for, well, wives and children, especially during the summer holidays. It's also interesting how that changed the actual look of the land.
How so?
Well, starting in the 1890s, the area went from being this sandstone, sourveld grassland that's a specific type of grassy vegetation
Right.
to the heavily wooded look it has now. That's largely because people planted trees all around these new properties.
So the desire for a leafy escape literally created the leafy landscape we see today. Amazing. Now, going back to the name, you said J.C. Field I called it Krantz Kloof. After the gorge, why the change to just Kloof?
This is one of those great little historical quirks. Turns out Kranzkloof was causing confusion with another place called Kranskop.
Confusion how?
Railway goods were getting sent to the wrong place.
Seriously. Railway logistics changed the name of the town.
It really did. The general manager of railways actually asked for the name change specifically to sort out these delivery mix-ups.
That's incredible.
So the railway station got renamed first, and then the town just sort of followed suit.
And the station itself, is it still there?
The building that's there now replaced an older one from 1896. It was used for passenger trains right up until the 1970s.
And now?
Now it's been repurposed. It's actually a popular bar and restaurant. And, nicely, it's the main station, the terminus, for the Mjini Steam Railway.
Oh, that's fantastic. A link to its railway past.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
So as roads got better over the years, I guess more people started living there full-time, not just for holidays.
That's exactly right. Better roads made commuting easier, more practical. So the population shifted towards permanent residence. And this is when you really see the development of what people call the traditional Kloof house, especially in the 60s and 70s.
What defined that style?
Usually pretty large houses built on big plots, at least an acre, often more. You'd see things like slate roofs, definitely a swimming pool, maybe a little guest cottage, sometimes a tennis court, and all very much tucked away amongst the trees, lots of privacy.
Right. It's a clear shift, isn't it, from that seasonal escape to a settled, quite distinct suburban feel. If we zoom out again, what's the geography like today, and how do people get around?
Okay, so today Kloof is firmly part of what they call the Upper Highway area.
Yeah.
Still about 26 clicks northwest of Durban. It sits up on the Kloof Plateau, around 550 meters elevation, just at the top of Fields Hill, looking down towards Pinetown. It borders places like Gillets, Everton, Waterfall, Wybank, Pinetown.
And the main transport links.
The big one is the M13 highway. That was built back in the 1940s, and it cuts right through Kloof. That's the vital link east down to Pinetown, Westville, Durban, and then west towards Gillets, Hillcrest, Pietermaritzburg, where it hooks up with the main N3 highway.
The M13. Wait, isn't that stretch famous for something else? A big event.
It absolutely is. The really iconic thing about that particular bit of the M13 through Kloof, it's part of the route for the annual Comrades Marathon.
That's it. The Comrades, that legendary ultra marathon. I can just picture the runners slogging up Fields Hill.
Yeah.
We saw that picture, didn't we, from the 2023 race notes?
Yeah.
Runners on Old Main Road near the M13.
Exactly. Adds another whole layer to the place, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, beyond roads and hills, what about community stuff? Schools are mentioned in the sources.
Yeah, definitely a focus on education. In terms of state schools, you've got Kloof High School, Forestview Primary, Kloof Senior Primary, Kloof Junior Primary, and a pre-primary, too.
And private schools.
Right there in Kloof itself, there's Thomas More College and St. Mary's Diocesan School for girls. Plus, in the wider area, you have well-known ones like Highbury Prep in Hillcrest and Kearsney College up in Bothas Hill.
So a strong educational presence. What about getting back to nature? It's named for a gorge. It's in the Mist Belt. What do the sources say about wildlife and the environment there now?
Oh, this is still a huge part of Kloof's identity. That whole mist belt environment, all the trees. It supports a lot of bird life. The crowned eagle gets a specific mention, quite an impressive bird.
Wow.
And crucially, there are these preserved green areas.
The Krantz Kloof Nature Reserve, you mentioned that earlier.
Exactly, that's the main one. About 532 hectares. set up by the Natal Parks Board way back in 1950. It's centered right on that gorge, carved by the Emilwani River. There's also the Everton Conservancy, another protected space.
And any really standout wildlife stories from the sources? Anything surprising?
Oh yeah, some really wild details, literally. For instance, leopards. They definitely used to live in the gorge area.
Leopards.
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, a leopard is featured quite prominently on the Kloof town crest. And get this, the stuffed leopard you can see in the Durban Museum today. Reportedly, it was shot right there in the Kloof Gorge area.
No way. That's incredible. Leopards roaming in what became a residential area, and one ended up in the museum.
It really hits home how different the landscape was, doesn't it? The sources also mention chacma baboons were actually reintroduced to the reserve at one point.
How did that go?
Not so well. They apparently became a bit troublesome and had to be removed.
Oh, okay.
Bush pig might still be found in the reserve, and they were likely on the menu for those leopards back in the day. More commonly, things like porcupines are still around, especially in open areas like, apparently, on the grounds of the local SPCA.
Porcupines at the SPCA.
Yeah. And hence those little cat-like predators, they're often found in the forested bits, hunting in the trees.
It's amazing how you get these glimpses of the past wildlife right alongside what's still present. That leopard story, though, that's a keeper. Switching gears slightly, the climate, you mentioned the mist, escaping the heat. What are the key facts?
Right, well, looking at records going back to 1935, the average rainfall is about 1,075 millimeters a year. So fairly wet.
Mostly in summer.
Yeah, the rainy season is October to March, which is summer there. Winters tend to be quite dry. Temperature-wise, summers are warm, maybe 18 to 32 degrees Celsius, but generally cooler and less humid than down in Durban.
Uh-huh.
Winters are cooler, yeah, typically somewhere between 8 and 20 degrees Celsius.
Definitely explains why those early Durban folks wanted a summer place up there. Makes perfect sense. So if you're living in Kloof today or maybe visiting, what sort of things are there to do? What places get mentioned?
There's a pretty good mix, reflecting that blend of nature and, well, developed stuff. The Krantzview Nature Reserve, the Kloof Gorge itself, that's a big draw. Popular for rock climbing, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for beginners and experienced climbers, different styles. Plus, hiking trails with great views.
Any gardens specifically noted?
Yes, there are private botanical gardens,
Yeah.
originally created by a horticulturalist. They're now part of the Makaranga Lodge Hotel Gardens, known for tall Makaranga trees, and you can get guided tours. And of course, the golf course. The Kloof Country Club has this highly rated 18-hole course. For a long time, it was the only one like it outside Durban proper. The N13 actually runs right alongside part of it.
I see. And for just, daily life, shopping?
Yep, several centers are listed. Del Cairn Center, Field Shopping Center, Maytime, the Village Mall. And the Kloofwoods Upper Highway SPCA comes up again not just as an animal shelter, but it has a tea garden, a nursery, secondhand shops, even trails to walk on their grounds.
The SPCA sounds like quite a hub.
It does, yeah. Other spots mentioned are the Country Club again for tennis, squash, cricket. There's the Nkaka Trust Nature Reserve, Kloof Tennis Club, a Virgin Active Gym,
Okay.
and St. Agnes Anglican Church gets mentioned, the buildings from the 1950s built on land donated by one of the Field descendants. Oh, and Memorial Park, which people apparently call the dog park.
It sounds like a place that really offers both, doesn't it?
Easy.
And access to proper nature, trails, the gorge, but also established clubs, shops, community places.
That balance really seems to be the heart of it, based on this material.
Yeah.
You've got this layered history, starting from that one huge farm being strategically divided. You've got the unique natural setting, the gorge, the altitude, the mist driving why people came. And then it evolved, didn't it? From holiday escape to permanent home, leading to the community and the facilities you see now.
So if we pull all these threads together, the history, the geography, how it developed, what's the takeaway for you, the listener, when you hear about a place like Kloof? What does knowing this background give you?
Well, I think it means you see how things like geography and historical land ownership aren't just dusty facts. They're actual forces that shape how a community grows. Kloof shows you how a natural feature like that gorge becomes not just a name, but the heart of a protected reserve.
Right.
And it really illustrates how human needs change over time first, escaping the heat, then wanting spacious permanent homes, and how that directly influences where people settle, what they build, even what the landscape looks like, that shift from grassland to trees. It gives you a way to understand the backstory of places that just seem established today.
It is fascinating tracing it from 7,000 acres for 245,000 all the way to this modern community. Thanks so much for walking us through all these sources and uncovering the story of Kloof.
My pleasure. It's a brilliant example of how much depth you find when you dig a little deeper into a place's past.
It really is, and maybe it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. For places like Kloof, places born from very specific circumstances, escaping the heat,
Mm.
leveraging natural beauty, how do they manage the future? That constant balancing act between keeping the unique character that made them desirable, that misspelt charm, those big properties, and the pressures of growth, of more people wanting that lifestyle. What happens to that charm as development continues?
It's a tough question. A challenge lots of desirable places grapple with, for sure.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found something in this conversation that sparked your own curiosity.